So finally new stuff. It's just like all those scenes since I got the neutral ending, all been scenes we've seen before. Now finally something different. The snap of my mobile phone's closing contrast with the ambient chatter and noise audible even in the hallway outside the library. It's the first day of the summer holidays, a time that had perpetually seemed so far away, and yet it's now not only here but also made painfully obvious by the students, or lack thereof, left in the school. What's a scene called? False Kiddings. Most students have returned home to spend the holidays with relatives by now, and the few that are left are mostly chatting between themselves, usually about what they intend to do in the coming weeks. Makes me feel like the odd one out, for taking advantage of the school library being open for the first several days of the holidays. Ostensibly, it's for students to drop off any books they've borrowed and have yet to return, and for those who will have their parents pick them up to help pass the time until they get whisked away. Thanks to the recent lengthy phone call from my parents, which had so rudely woken me from my sleeping on a beanbag at the back of the library, I'm now in the latter category. Glide my phone back into my pocket, this time remembering to set it to silent, I go back into the quiet and wholly passive room. It's a nostalgic sight, just as when Lilly first led me to the library. The orange tint of sunset paves the room in its light while Hanako sits on a beanbag silently reading and Yuuko fusses, just barely visible behind the counter. Hanako especially has been noticeably more quiet than usual since yesterday's happenings, but I can't really blame her. It wasn't just me that depended on that person after all. I quietly walked back to the beanbag near her where I had sat before, being doubly careful not to make any unnecessary noise. The soft puff it gives as the bag takes my weight makes Hanako's eyes flick towards me, but only for a second. I get the feeling that Hanako's been quiet only partially out of sadness following Lily's departure. Rather, she seems more thoughtful and measured than I'd expected, perhaps due to her desire of working out how to deal with Lily's leaving rather than just being depressed over it. Makes me a little proud of her. Hey, Hanako.
Yeah?
Still going ahead with your idea of traveling? She gives a determined nod.
I'll be starting in a day or two. I'll be decided to come with me too.
Wow, quick start. Where are you two heading to first?
I think we're going to start by going north, then loop around and go southward.
So, Hokkaido's going to be first? She gives an old nod, more tentative than the last. The significance of that place is not lost on Iris. Do you know how you're going to handle the traveling expenses and accommodations?
Yeah, I've worked everything out. I think it should be okay. Mommy said she has her site worked out too.
You know that if you need anything you can just call her, right? You gave her my number before. Any time of the day is fine. She gives a smile, which in itself feels like a small personal victory.
I know. Thanks, Hisao.
Maybe Lily was right, although I may offer Hanako any help I can possibly give. I feel as if I know she doesn't need it. She really has grown. Hanako's plans for our holidays are in sharp contrast to my simple following of my parents' suggestion to stay with them. Holidays had always made me feel less excited than most, though, so maybe this is just a return to the status quo. For my heart attack, I've always lived so aimlessly that holidays weren't all that much different from my everyday life anyway. After school, I'd wander around a bit in the city, often hanging out with some friends before making my way home to eat dinner with usually one of my parents, but rarely both. Their work schedules didn't leave much for them to be home, and going there straight from school would have just meant I'd end up feeling bored. I was even it's for whatever. Since coming to Yamaka though, it feels like I've fundamentally changed as a person. The phone call with my parents erased any trace of doubt I might have held on that, in any case. Well, before I'd exercised a fairly normal level of independence for a teenager, there being not a whole lot, my parents were more than pleased to hear of my newfound ability in taking care of myself. Laundry, cooking for myself, cleaning, all in addition to other general chores that come from living without parents around. Just little menial things I've had to pick up, but with relative ease. Interruption. When I think about it, I'd always depend on them. Even if they hadn't been at home all the time. To say I'd never depend on anyone after moving to the Iwaku dormitories would be far from the truth though. For some reason, it just makes me think of Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. Like, he's like, try to be like dependent all the time. But really, nobody is truly 100% dependent. You are reliant on others, even if you don't realize it. I mean, think about society in general. I mean, if you were completely 100% independent, how the hell could you possibly live? Because there'd be other people, just like food, for example. Unless you grew your own food and shit like that, you're dependent on other people's, supplying of it, Sure, you're purchasing it and all that, but you still have to rely on them to actually, supply it. And even then, if you did, you're reliant on something completely different then, isn't it? It's like, if you're growing crops or something, you're reliant that, the crops will grow, and shit like that. So you're always reliant on something. Unless you have superpowers where you're just like, yes! But then you'd be reliant on your own powers as well. So, you are kind of independent in that way, but that doesn't make sense because that's impossible. I don't know, man. Whatever.
Excuse me.
The two of us look up at the awkwardly fidgeting figure in front of us. Some things never change.
It's getting close to closing time, so,
Oh, right. I'd forgotten that the library closes earlier during the holidays. Hanako and I both get up and dust ourselves off, placing our books back on the shelf behind us. The fact that our tastes in reading material have a fair amount of overlap is useful at times. What I find weird is that the scene for the neutral ending played out exactly the same as this ending, essentially, that we haven't got to yet. But in this case, it continues on. I mean, just that one difference. It's like just telling Lilly about freaking Hanako's letter makes that much of a difference. It's kind of... I suppose that's like how it works, really, isn't it? It's like just something like one kind of thing could change a lot, Just like it makes you think, like, if you could like time travel, how much you could change by just doing something slightly different. Probably like wouldn't be like overly significant usually, but just like something as simple as like maybe you have a sandwich and then you travel back in time. And you decide not to have the sandwich, how much would change? It's like, well, my stomach would still be hungry. It's like, that's what changed. I don't know, just random things. Hanako and I both get up and dust ourselves off, placing our books back on the shelf behind us. The fact that our tastes in reading material have a fair amount of overlap is useful at times. Sorry, read that. With about Yuuko to apologize for taking so much time, Hanako takes a leave of us. It'd be weird as if they were like reading Stephen King novels or something, just like... Wow, that's certainly a different reading. I remember when I read Stephen King's It years ago. Man, it's like what they say. It's like he is a master of the horror. It's just like really freaking, just like creepy shit. And it's a really long book. It's like if you watch like the movie, the miniseries, whatever. Isn't there supposed to be a new one coming out? But whatever, you see that, it's just like for example, like the big bad monster, like right at the end, just like in the freaking movie thing adaptation is like, is that really it? But when you're reading it, it leaves your mind to come up with that, and that's what makes it a lot more creepier, isn't it? It's like, shit, what could it look like? But then if you see how it looks, it's like kind of feels a bit underwhelming, isn't it? Anyway,
see you tomorrow, Hisao.
It just was my voice there. Bye. And with that, she walks out of the large wooden aging doors that herald the entrance to the library.
She's a quiet person, isn't she?
I suppose I should be surprised at a staff member sharing personal opinions like this, but after knowing Yuuko for a while, it's largely expected. The relationship is more personal rather than one with her acting as an authority figure. Yeah, I think that's just how she is. She's got a lot more confidence in herself these days, though.
I don't know her as well as you do, but I think I agree. It's nice to see her talking to people here. She never used to do that before.
Hey, Yuuko, you know about Lilly's leaving, right?
She told me herself a few days ago. It must be hard leaving everyone behind like she is.
She quickly looks back to me after she says this, probably remembering that I went to her for advice on a relationship between Lilly and I before.
Are you going to be okay?
That's a difficult question. Something I'd rather not think about for now, though, given more pressing issues. Something seems kind of off about the whole deal, don't you think? Like, how in the neutral ending it ended, but in this ending we're going for, it hasn't ended yet? Yuuko appears to fig for a while, absentmindedly scrunching her face up in a variety of creative ways as she does so. I mean, it makes you wonder, like, after the neutral ending, we don't see anything else, because it just ends right there. But it makes you wonder if Hisao went through this same thought process, because he must have. But it's obviously, like, we're seeing it now, so... It also makes you wonder if, like, the neutral ending is like, well... If they bring up, like, the letter with Hanako and all that, and them talking about that, then it makes sense, you know, how that influenced the choice. Otherwise, it just feels like more of just like this allows you to see what happens after the neutral ending. But they probably are going to bring it up. Maybe, I don't know. Yuuko appears to think for a while after madly scrunching her face up in a variety of creative ways as she does so.
I don't think I really know her well enough to make that kind of judgment.
Well, she was always ordering in books, though, but I guess it's not exactly getting to know a person if it's just that. Well, she probably knew her a bit.
I'm sorry, I can't be more help.
Nah, that's fine, I'm just sort of thinking aloud. I give a deep sigh and scratch my head in frustration. There's just so much stuff happening at once that I have no control over. Feels like I'm being swamped.
I think everyone goes through times like that. What's important is to concentrate on what you can do rather than what you can't do. At least that's how I see it. If I did think like that, I don't think I'd be able to manage my life as it is.
She says it with a smile and a light tone, but her words are far from any kind of joke. Being pulled between two jobs as she is, just to hopefully make enough money not only to live, but also for the university, must be exhausting. Perhaps that's why, coming from her, this feels like it has more meaning than it had come from most others. I guess you got a point there. Thank you for your advice once again, Yuuko. She bows deeply and smiles again, before making her way back to the counter where she spent so much of her time. The tiny wings of the cardboard crane in my... Oh, you still got that. And my fingers are only just visible in the dim light of my room. Just a little moonlight being able to peek through the curtains and around their edges. He has a hand and a crane. I lie still in my dark bed for a long time, idly looking up at the little origami bird. Ariadel Foil, I don't know how that is pronounced, or even what it means. Is it French? Probably. This makes me think of Rin's route with this music. I mean, it plays in all Kata's routes, but it distinctly makes me think of Rin. It feels like a lot's happened since Lilly folded this, but at the same time, it feels like very little has changed. I did read the previous text, right? Yeah, I lie still in my dark bed for a long time, idly looking up at the little origami bird. Compared to everyone else, I'm back to square one. I might have a newfound idea of where I want to go in life, but that's hardly something that affects me now. Hanako changed, I know that much. If anything, she just makes me feel like I've got no excuse to be like this, considering her previous situation. Lilly, though, I turn the bird in my fingers another way, looking at it from yet another angle. When I first met her, she seemed aloof and perhaps somewhat distant. Her actions were always careful, measured, and precise, and her carefully maintained composure always gave the appearance of unerring confidence and serenity. In time, she became less formal, just a bit, but enough. It felt good to see her lowering her inhibitions around me, and opening up, even just a little, of her own accord. It felt as if I was seeing her real self slowly become more vibrant and visible. Now, though, I'm beginning to have doubts. Perhaps they're to be expected after what is, effectively, the two of us breaking up. They don't feel new or strange, though, but rather like an old book being found and dusted off. I soon realized, after meeting Lilly, that she saw me as she did Hanako, as someone who needed help and care. At first, I simply thought that we'd be fine as friends, helping each other through our limited time together in school. But then I began to treasure our moments together more and more, from our quiet walks to our talking over lunch. The good sides of her personality became ever more obvious, and ever more likable. The absence caused by Lily's trip to Scotland to visit her long-distant family and sick aunt only made me realize how much I liked just being around her, and I had thought that she felt a similar way. And the whole time, she knew! Like, it's just like, really, just like... I mean, if you just go back to those scenes, like, all those scenes, like, from when she got back, like, when they went to Hokkaido and when they came back, all the moments they shared, she knew all along. It's just, like, makes it all the more impactful when you look at it like that. For her, though, maybe that wasn't everything to our relationship. Even after she returned to Japan, that just meant she lost her family once again after meeting them for such a brief time. She lived so much of her life without her family around, not to mention with Akira working long hours, which she had little choice but to be like that. I'd thought her sense of independence to be a good and admirable trait. It was in stark difference to my reliance on my parents before my heart attack, as reluctant as I may have been to admit it. However, it also meant that she never let people get too close to her. She lost her family likely due to her blindness, went to a different school from anybody she knew because of it, and worked all the harder to make sure she didn't end up a burden on her sister and those around her. And now Akira's going to Inverness, just like the family she thought she'd lost. I am pronouncing that right, Inverness, right? She never told me of her plans, as conflicted as she was about them. Lilly didn't want to be a burden on anyone, including me. I'm an idiot. I never questioned it, I never tried to be there or asked where she needed me to. I just set my life up and expected to stay that way forever, with the two of us having a nice long relationship where we pushed forwards towards our future together. A small bit of frustration and anger at myself wells up in my chest. I just let everything happen, never even trying to help Lilly. Just her being there was enough. I thought I could keep going on if that were true. But that could never have been enough. It was a childlike dependence on somebody without any attempt to understand or help their situation. Thanks to that, I lost Lilly. I lost the one person I loved most because I wasn't there for her when she needed me. With an increasingly angry feeling washing over me, I turned over and set the crane back on the desk next to my clock, the place where it has lived since that day when she folded it for me, since that day when she herself said that my burdens needn't be my own. The obnoxious bright red numerals of my alarm clock shined through the darkness of the room onto my tired eyes. 10 o'clock, evening, curfew will be soon. I wonder, Akira mentioned they'd be leaving this evening. Oh! I've no idea exactly where that flight is, but that means there's a chance, however small, that they might not have already left. It's frickin' 10, man! How are you gonna get to the airport quick enough? I mean, they said evening, that's kind of vague. It could be at any point, you know? Adrenaline starts to move from my body as I sit up on my bed, my eyes suddenly wide with possibility. There's no guarantee they haven't left. Indeed, it's likely that they already have, but there's also a chance they haven't, however small it may be. Just this once, just as I should have before. I stand up and rush over to my cabinet, throwing out some clothes as fast as I can, and sliding them on in quick succession. Friendship! Each second that goes by is a second that I can't regain, a second that may mean the difference between catching them and losing them forever. Even if I fail, I have to try. I can't let her leave everything behind without even trying to stop her, without just this once being there for her. The last of my clothes slipped on. I hastily grabbed the phone off the desk. Luckily, the number for a local taxi company is still in my call history. A gruff, unenthusiastic voice announces the name of the company while I pace around the room. It takes some effort to slow down my voice and keep it clear over the phone. The chilly night air sweeps against me as I open the dormitory door, but nevertheless I keep up my brisk speed as I half jog, half run out to the school gates. It may not be curfew just yet, but it's precariously close. If there were a guard around, there'd be no doubt to have some questions for me, but it looks like I've managed to come out just before they arrive, or they're around the corner. The moon is in the sky, crescent the moon. My pace picks up as I make my way through the school gates. Their nighttime and lair are all but lost when I begin to run to the school gates. Now I got pot noodles, so I'm gonna finish that before continuing this moment. Right. What's my voice? Right. My pace picks up my way through the school gardens with an accent. Their nighttime lair all but lost. We're not lost. When I begin to run to the school gate. I think I know what the problem is. Pardon me. It's like, try to eat fast and then you need to burp. The lamps of the courtyard, dim as they are, provide just enough illumination to light the way and prevent me from tripping over. The buildings themselves take on a rustic, almost antique-looking edge when I glance at them. Looking back, it seems strange that they once appeared so dark and looming to me. Now they just look to be somewhat anachronistic school buildings, the same as any other bar their age. Leaving the gates behind me. You know, listen to the left hand there, the arpeggios. I like how piano pieces do that, but I can never really do that because my left hand. I mean, you see people playing piano and the way they just kind of just like gracefully just like move their left hand over the keys, like do do. But if you notice, they usually, a lot of the times they're using their pinky, right? I don't have a pinky on my left hand, that's the missing finger, man. And not only that, but my first finger on my left hand is also permanently bent forward a little bit. So that's, I don't usually use that finger much. So I'm usually just using my thumb and my third finger and my middle finger occasionally. So really, you got like these long arpeggios going back and forth, but I'm just using 2 to 3 fingers, so it becomes awkward and much easier to hit the wrong notes, which has always bugged me. I mean, I can play the main melody to Xanakin just fine, both left hand and right hand. Used to be able to play the whole thing, but I've since forgot it. And there's one piece called One Last Witch from movie Casper. It has like really like kind of fast-ish, like, well, not overly fast, but kind of maybe a bit faster than these arpeggios. And I always found it hard to keep up with. I can't play all of it now. But back in the day when I originally learned it, even when I was good at playing it, I always had trouble with the fast arpeggio bits. And then, like, you listen to, say, like, Final Fantasy music, like the piano classics, where they'll always throw in that bit where it's like fast left-hand arpeggio is just like, Jesus Christ, I couldn't do that. Not with my left hand. This is why, like, if you hear me improvising on my keyboard, usually I hear 2 back and forth notes, because I'm just using my thumb and my third finger a lot. So it's just like do 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 do, while my right hand's doing all melodies and shit where I'm like do 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 do, just changed like that so it can stay on notes a lot longer that way. Or I could like form an arpeggio like with 3 chords notes, so just like do 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 do, just kind of back and forth. But I'm only using 2 fingers. Wow. My third finger and the thumb to do that usually. Well, I just play a chord using usually my second and third finger and the thumb, or very occasionally if I need 4 fingers to do it, I'll also include my first finger. But yeah, you get the idea. Pain in the ass to play arpeggios, you know, for me. But anyways, haven't we got an important scene? Leaving the gates behind me, I pull up to a stop just before the taxi. Parked just as Actra's car had been. Its gaudy and brightly lit sign looks out of place in the quiet country backdrop. I impatiently squeeze myself to the door, giving the driver the address for where the 2 should hopefully be staying. Oh wait, isn't that a Hakamichi's house? So oh yeah, they did say they have to pick up stuff there, so it probably is where they're staying. By the time the taxi pulls up after its trip at maddeningly casual speed, it's well and truly deep into the night. The house is truly enormous, its sheer size much larger than I expected, enormously still, fearing the worst I have to drive the stay just in case my efforts are for naught. A single press on the fancy intercom system outside the gate produces a short electronic melody to yell by a silent road. It's not long before a somewhat deep, gruff voice can be heard from it. Wait, could it be, Jigoro, wherever his name was? This is Hakamichi's residence. Please state your name and why you bother us this late. I press on the spine, initially wincing at the reasonable annoyance audible in his voice. It's Sao Nakai. I was hoping to meet Lilly or Akra if they're still here. Surprisingly, I managed to summon quite some energy to my voice, enough to make the other side of the intercom silent. A few seconds pass, but just before I press the button again and ask what's going on, a light turns on outside the front door. I strain my eyes to try and make out who is coming through, but as he comes past a large parked car with fishing rods sticking out the back, his identity becomes clear. His face is typically placid and emotionless as he saunters up to the gate. He's still childlike in his mannerisms, despite his demeanor. With the press of a few buttons from behind hence the gate slowly opens. Oh wait, was it him? Hisao, what are you doing here? I think this is the most emotional I've ever heard from his voice. Not that it would be hard to reach that mark. Akira told me that she and Lilly would be staying here before they left for their flight. Need to talk to Lilly just one last time. Are you still here? The look on his face says everything. I failed. I was too late. The one time when I actually needed to act quickly and... Actually, it's possible. What? What is? He's a bit taken aback by my fervor, but I can't help it at this point. They left not long ago, only a few minutes before you arrived in fact. If you go straight to the airport, you might be able to. Hisao! I dart back towards the waiting taxi, grabbing what little money is left in my pocket as I go. Thanks, Hideaki. With that, I take a seat and in short order mark out my destination. My chest beats wildly as I tear down the streets, and my body twisting this way and that to slip between the pedestrians walking back and forth beside me. With the roads solidly blocked by taxis and other cars, dropping off passengers and picking up others in the time they have to wait. We end up having to stop almost a block away. But that's in the past now. What matters is reaching Lilly and getting out of this freaking loud crowd. One foot hits the ground, the other quickly following without the slightest thought. As if my legs have taken on a life of their own and all my mind can do is concentrate on the view ahead of me. Just one glimpse of that long hair of hers, that long yellow hair that was the same color as the wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see. In the end, I depended on Lilly, just like Hanako did. Even after we started going out, it still doesn't feel like she really ever let herself depend on me. Except for one moment, that one moment where we held each other tightly on that bright yellow field. At that time, she must have feared losing me just as she did everyone else. That's why, just this once. The night air wraps around me, draining every last remnant of warmth out of my body, to the extent that it feels more like midwinter than a summer night. My fingers, my hands, my feet, they all feel increasingly cold. The sound of the passing crowds, that won't shut the fuck up, is reduced to no more than a background hum while the sound of my shoes hitting the pavement echoes loudly. Every step surging towards the person I have to catch. Forced by my chest tightening in response to the cold of the night, I rest an arm over it to try and settle it down. When the airport comes into view though, I realize this feeling as one I felt before. Not now, of all times for this, please not now. I take a gulp and soldier on regardless, pushing my body as far as it will go. Sweat pours off me as I hurtle forward, my shoulder hitting someone's side and my mind suddenly flooding with emotions and memories. I continue on without an apology. I have to keep moving now. If I stop, I'm not sure I can begin anew. And even if I could, it would all be for naught if I'm not in time. I hit another person, then another, offering little resistance to get me bouncing back. My feet feel numb, my arms are loosening all feeling, my chest forcing me to hunch over awkwardly, tightening ever more. That afternoon in the snow, that time when my life irreversibly changed, images of Hanako and that damned letter flash over and over in my mind. The first love I'd lost thanks to my condition. I can't let that happen again. I don't care what happens to me anymore. I just need to see her one last time. There! Oh, CG! A silver of yellow and white comes into view. Some distance down the road, her figure silhouetted by the lights emanating from the airport entrance. Lilly! Lilly! Lilly, stop, please! Lilly! Come on, Lilly, I know you're here and it's far beyond the... Ah! My view suddenly spins out of control and ends up on the ground. My body half-heartedly sprawled over after hitting someone and stumbling over. Before I can assess the damage, an unbelievable pain ignites in my body. All my thoughts are blanked as I curl up and frantically clutch at my chest. Who's saying that? Hey, are you okay? That was a really bad fall. This pain, I can't. Any sharp knock could do me in. Any organization, I thought I could overcome my limits this once. Something's wrong with him. What's the matter? The voices of those gathered around me are gradually replaced by a loud ringing in my ears. By now I'm unable to move my head. My eyes turn upwards to see the moving of their lips. Even as I clutch my chest, I realize I can't feel my fingers anymore, nor my feet. Feels like my entire body is shutting down, starting from my extremities. With one last effort, I turn my head down the road towards the airport entrance that's casting its light over me. Lilly is there behind the crowd. Her head is tilted, but only just slightly. I can feel my vision dimming as I try to yell out, but nothing emerges from my mouth despite my best efforts. Slowly but surely, my vision begins to black out the scene before me. So, this is how it ends. I failed. I was so close, so very close. But at the very last moment, my condition seized my chance at a new life and dragged me back. Now I'm going to die, sprawled out just meters from an airport, with a crowd of babbling people surrounding me, and with Lilly leaving for Scotland just a little distance ahead. That last word extinguishes the last of my energy. The world falls into a deep, inescapable blackness as every muscle in my body shuts down. I'm sorry, Lilly. I was too late. Passage of time. So gonna wake up in the hospital. What's going on? As I slowly open my eyes, a bright white light assaults my retinas. For minutes I just lay where I am, mindlessly staring ahead while my scattered thoughts. Yeah, Clarice within my slowly waking mind. Clarice is Alzheimer's. I have no idea. He probably is. He's gonna wake up in the hospital bed, isn't he? Slowly but surely. Yeah, that's definitely gonna be it. Unless, for some reason, he just wakes up like unconscious from being unconscious in the airport. Slowly but surely, the white begins to come into focus as a bare expanse begins to be drawn across my field of vision. You know, really, it feels kind of sad and fitting at the same time, really, if this is like, where it's just like, it obviously isn't going to end right here, obviously, but like, this whole thing started, it's like, in essentially confessing to Hanako, they're both kind of about to confess their feelings for each other in a field on a snowy day, and then his heart attack happened, and then from there, he was in hospital for months. So now we're back to square one. It really is back to square one, isn't it? But is it really? It's only when the light fixture comes into view that my mind clicks that this is the ceiling above me. Yep, he's in a hospital. Slowly leveling myself up, I silently absorb all my senses, the details of the room I'm in. A smell and taste of strong bleach hang in the air, leaving the impression of a place just slightly too clean to be natural. Inoffensive pale peach-colored walls, all perfectly painted without a crack, stain, or imperfection. A single framed painting hangs on the wall, perfectly straightened like the walls. It's as boring and inoffensive as it can be. My attention's grabbed by the translucent curtain waving across my vision, my eyes following it to the open window it covers. When I move my right arm to try to lift myself up and look through it, I feel the feeder dig in comfortably. Or whatever. It's only now, too, that I notice the cannula tubes widening around my cheeks and into my nose. After some fidgeting, I settle for just looking around the corner of the window. Beyond the thick leaves of several large trees, I can see the greenery below, backing out into a field, a customary island of green on the outskirts of the city. Judging by the sun outside, it's noon, of which day, though, I'm not sure. So, I'm in the hospital once again. I let out a long, tired breath as I try to collect my scattered thoughts, my mind seemingly cast in a dozen different directions, all at once with as many emotions running through me. You know, it still bugs me that way back when the nurse was like, keep in touch and all that for, you said you were going to keep an eye on him, and then he had that instant where he woke up with that start that he had. And I probably didn't tell the nurse about that. It still bugs me. After slowly lying back down, I decided to start at the beginning. Why I'm here. I get my mind back, but I can't work out a smooth recollection of what happened. The events of last night, or whichever night it was, come back more as a series of snapshots than any cohesive memory. Just like, because they were CGs, well, that one probably doesn't count as a CG. Lying on my bed, looking at the origami bird. Oh no, well, it could, I don't know. Talking to Hideaki outside the Hakamichi residence. Running down the street, passing pedestrians and bumping into more and more of them. Falling. Looking up at the seemingly bright airport entrance, seeing Lilly's back as I lay there on the ground. You know what? It makes me think if, like, when he was called out to her, if Lilly, well, with her sense of hearing, probably heard him, maybe she was, like, holding back, just like, no, if I turn around now, I won't be able to continue, and maybe that's what happens. The silence of the private room suddenly feels overwhelming. Oh, Caged Hearts. We're back to that. Remember this track? Caged Heart. Just played when he was in the hospital at the start as well. It all comes full circle, so that's it. I had my chance to correct my mistake, and I blew it. Well, I was at fault for neglecting my medication and disregarding to pace myself, while my body was forgiven out so soon. It doesn't matter now. All that matters is that, once again, I'm alone. The pastel blue pillow yields with little resistance as I let myself fall back onto the bed. Its starchy case, along with the starchy sheets, providing little comfort. Yeah, that does not look like a comfortable bed. Compared to the darkness of last night's events, the bright light of the room around me is striking. All it does, though, is emphasize how otherworldly places like this are. Arrhythmia. A strange word, a foreign, alien one, that's probably written in katakana, probably. I don't know. Well, that is what katakana is for in the Japanese language. It's for foreign words. I'm not entirely sure what can be considered a foreign word half the time, though. Because I don't know what to expect, really. It's like, some words are very obvious, you know? Like, say, keyboard, for example. That would be katakana. That would be considered foreign word there. Piano, I don't think does, though. Guitar kind of does count as katakana as well, I'd imagine. It's just like, I'm just thinking of musical instruments there, but that's an example, you know? It's just kind of weird. But I think arrhythmia would probably be, I don't know, maybe it would have kanji for it as well, I don't know. Strange word, a foreign alien one that you don't want to be in the same room with. My god, this was the same thing he said way back when, at the start. It's weird, man. I remember that. And it was like, what was that, part 1 or 2? That was literally back at the start of the year. It's ridiculous. This LP has spanned the whole year. It's kind of fitting, really, that it concludes at the end of the year, then, isn't it? It's like this LP is like started on the very 1st of January this year. Still ongoing here, technically. Don't know when it'll get around to uploading, but it'll probably be like fully uploaded before the new year. Although it would also be fitting, you know, if the final part gets uploaded on January 1st, that would be very fitting. But I kinda doubt it. Who knows? We'll see how things go here. Strange word, I read that. A rare condition causes the heart to act erratically and occasionally beat way too fast. It can be fatal. It's a miracle that you were able to go on so long without anything happening, they said. And then it did. My condition had taken away everything. My old school was of no importance anymore. My home was reduced to a faraway place. Both my friends and my first love simply stopped visiting after a length of time. I became cynical and embittered, distant and subdued. In my defense, no person could avoid that after such a thing happened to them. But nonetheless, I left the hospital as a very definitely changed person. Things changed. I met new friends in Hanako, she's in Ambisha. I found a new sense of home in my dormitory, a new interest in science and the world around me, and I found a direction to my life that I had never felt before. But I'd also discovered other things. The sense of isolation in Yamaku and its surroundings was not entirely unwelcome. The quiet giving a peace of mind I might not have found elsewhere. but it gave the area a feeling of being pushed out of the way, of being kept out of sight. People in the streets would sometimes glance awkwardly or quickly turn their heads as they realized they were staring. Even if my condition wasn't visible, my uniform was. Even if it weren't, I was still different. I took 17 pills a day, morning, midday, and night. My scar, though hidden behind clothing, was still a permanent mark of my condition, and most of all, there was the very real possibility of death. A bad fall, an absent-minded hard hit on the back, a simple sprint taken too far, anything could have set my heart off, and several times I teetered on the edge of the abyss, even with all the care I took of myself. But that was fine. I could have lived with all that, because there was one final thing I'd found, or rather, refound after entering Yamaku, which was once again snatched away before my eyes. It's only now that I realized just how delicate my newfound sense of happiness was. Everything depended on her, the linchpin of my life since I first entered Yamaku as a sullen, confused, and aimless transfer student. Lilly Sato was the one person I could depend upon above all others, and who recuperated, my crappy pronunciation of words, the love that I felt for her, but I failed her and only realized it all too late. I thought that I could just set my life up and continue that way forever, but the real world doesn't work like that. I finally realized the meaning of those words, only to be struck down as I confronted my failure to do so in time. The surroundings I'm in now are all too familiar. It's as if Yamaku was but a dream. I'm still recovering from my first major heart attack. Yeah, that must be a surreal experience. Maybe that's why I feel so tired. It feels almost as if I've lived the entire last few months of my life in the space of minutes. The weight of my eyelids close as my eyes, my physical and mental exhaustion letting me offer no resistance. Unintelligible mumbling from the head of the bed stirs me out of my sleep. With my eyes still closed, I can focus and make out someone, presumably a nurse, bidding farewell to a doctor. As I open my eyes, I notice a door closing in my peripheral vision. The doctor stands reading some notes off a clipboard held in his hand, carefully looking over the pages. After consulting his obviously very important documents, he looks up and notices my gaze. It's now that I notice something slightly odd about its expression and general disposition, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I see you're awake, Mr. Nakai. A quick glance on my bed to my bed end to verify my name shows that his documents obviously didn't have it written on them. I must admit this is a bit unfortunate. Your parents visited just earlier while you were asleep. I could notify them you're awake now if you'd like. Thanks, that would be good. I give a somewhat dazed reply, most likely the one he'd expect, before really thinking about what I'm saying. Not a problem. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll be happy to answer them. That is, unless you'd prefer to rest. The anesthetic's still going to be affecting you a bit, I'm afraid. The anesthetic, of course. That's be why I felt so strange the first time I woke up. I slowly shake my head, not wanting to dislodge any pipes or cause myself any more discomfort than necessary. The doctor politely puts down his clipboard in response. I guess my main question is, what exactly happened? To put it simply, you've unfortunately had another heart attack. While not as severe as your first, you were very lucky it occurred up so close to a hospital. After being stabilized, you were taken to the operation room. What followed was keyhole surgery in order to insert a temporary pacemaker. All in all, the incident happened 2 days ago, with emergency treatment being carried out very soon afterwards. Since then, we've kept you under some observation while you were asleep. Will I be alright? Are there any lasting problems? Compared to the procedure carried out for your first heart attack, this was relatively minor. While you will have to undergo surgery once more in a few days' time to remove the pacemaker, assuming there are no complications, there should be no lasting implications. He continues talking, the subject switching to a repetition of facts about arrhythmia and my medications that I already know for the most part. I start to nod and feign interest while my mind drifts. I begin to think about how perfectly hung the inoffensive painting hanging on the wall behind his shoulder is, how neat and sterile the surroundings are, even including the doctor himself. My mumbling bores you. You are quite welcome to say so, Mr. Nakai. Lord knows I lose track of myself sometimes. My alarm! He gives a short chuckle at his self-deprecating joke. I always forget that. It's like self-deprecating. That's the word for that type of humor, isn't it? Where you kind of like, let's try to think of an example. Well, what he just did there, he's just like, like, I realize myself I can be pretty damn boring. You're being self-deprecating yourself, but in a joking manner. As I grimace awkwardly, having been rather badly caught out. The doctor's chuckle sounds different from that of the nurse at Yamaki, though. Come to think of it, as I ponder why, I realize why the man in front of me feels just that little bit off. His smile is neat and sterile. He delivers his little joke perfectly, with a customary inoffensive chuckle. It's like, rather than talking to the man whose name is neatly printed on the name tag pinned to his lab coat, I'm merely interacting with an actor reading off a script, every action having been choreographed beforehand. I suppose he has to be this way, though, being a doctor. I suppose it's because the nurse at Yamaku is a bit different, is because he knows him a bit more, I guess. He's more familiar. He has to keep his neat and sterile smile while chatting to the girl with cancer slowly spreading through her body, when reassuring the woman who will surely die from childbirth, with every other terminally and critically ill patient. It makes perfect sense. It'd be freaking useless if a doctor was like, it reminds me of the comedian Lee Evans, talking about, the emergency services, how you rush to emergency services. You're like, I need a fire engine now! And they're all calm. It's like, okay, where are you? And all that. They're very calm, because really would be useless if they freaked out. You're like, oh, shit! I'm not sure if the clip is on YouTube. It's just, really random joke that is. Just like, oh, the tea's gone everywhere. It's just really just amusing. But imagine if freaking emergency services freaked out that way. You just be like, God damn it, man, keep calm. Man, you've got to do that, otherwise it's just you'll not be able to calm down the other person. That little bit of distance, that little bit of aloofness, makes me wonder if I've been too harsh, especially considering its disposition far from being adapted only by people in his profession. Adopted. After all, the one I loved kept that same distance from others herself. Looking up to the doctor again, I realize I've been in fort with my head bowed for some time. I understand you must still be tired. You've been through a lot, and as I mentioned before, the anesthetic sure would still be affecting you. If you don't mind, I'll let you get some rest and tell your parents you've woken up fully. I think that'll be good. Thank you. He gives a curt nod before picking up his clipboard and making his way to the large white door in the corner of the room, closing it behind him with a thud. In the end, I'm alone again. Lily's gone, Akira's gone, Akira would be travelling. God damn it! Hanako would be travelling, and even my parents have already left the hospital. Wait, they just were there though, weren't they? Or did they? Probably did say that they already left and he's just gonna call them, I don't know. 4 pale peach walls, 1 white ceiling, and a single open window to look out towards the world outside. It's hard to think of the future when the past is crowded around you, claustrophobic in its neat, sterile, starchy, bleach-smelling group. Lost for what to do or focus on, I content myself with sleeping the time away, as if this were all just another dream like Yamako and me.